Another day, another debate, and another at issue. It may only be Monday, but the gang is all here. Andrew's in Toronto, Chantel's in Montreal, Bruce is in Ottawa. Well, it was quite a session, and we've seen this is the fourth debate. I think most people seem to be already suggesting this was the best one. I don't know whether you each agree with that, but let's get your general assessments first. Andrew.
Well, I should say off the top, I'm on the board of the foundation that sponsors it, but I had nothing to do with the organization of this, so I think I can say fairly impartially and not with a lot of disagreement, I was proud of my democracy tonight. Those were three leaders on the top of their game. That was a format that allowed them to be heard. I think maybe it was the live audience helped to keep them in check to some extent. It also, some occasionally you got a bit of feedback from the audience that was sometimes useful. But I think people would have learned more about why the leaders hold the positions they do today, and to that extent, I think that's a great addition to the Democratic arsenal.
Chantel, how did it play from where you were watching?
I thought it was the best debate and certainly the most bearable to listen to. I don't think that it totally lived up to its bilingual format. The French disappeared for long periods of time. It didn't help that the moderator couldn't speak both languages as fluently. And if I were to quarrel with anything, it wouldn't be about the debate itself, but the fact that if you were lucky enough to speak both languages and not need an interpreter for any section, you essentially had to watch on a computer. Because the television stations that did broadcast it would give you either the French or the English audio.
Bruce.
Well, I just want to quickly disclose again that my brother, one of my brothers has been helping Mr. Harper in respect to these debates, and one of my daughters helping Mr. Trudeau. I agree that it was the best debate. I think it was the best debate by quite a bit, and I quite liked the first debate that happened in this campaign. I thought all three leaders came with their arguments ready to deliver to Canadians, and they, for the most part, especially Mr. Trudeau and Mr. Harper, I would say delivered them pretty effectively. It was forward-looking, it was values-based, there was a nice mix of emotion and fact-based argument. All in all, a good night for democracy, as Andrew said.
All right. Well, let's try and break it down a little bit by showing some of the excerpts. We are limited to the amount of time with these excerpts that we're allowed to show, but we can show you some of them. So let's start with the exchange that was early on C-51. That's the anti-terror bill. It got quite heated with all three leaders taking part. Watch this.
Now, Mr. Harper, we all know, on C-51, wants us to be afraid that there's a terrorist hiding behind any leaf and rock around us, and we all need to be afraid, and that's why he's there to protect us. But Mr. Mulcair is also playing the politics of fear and division. Fear for environmental groups and First Nations, fear that we're suddenly in a police state, fear that we've suddenly ripped up the Charter of Rights and Freedoms.
This government is fully committed to protecting both our freedoms and our security, both of which are under attack from the group ISIS. The threat we face today is not CSIS, it is ISIS.
Sharing information on peaceful protests, that's fair. You want to stand up for that? You voted for that. Going against basic rights and freedoms, you voted for that, Mr. Trudeau. I stood on a question of principle. I'm not afraid of Stephen Harper. I voted against Bill C-51.
All right, all three of them going at it on there. Andrew.
Well, certainly you saw there, one of the advantages Trudeau had tonight is he's much more comfortable in front of a crowd. He was almost working in the crowd at times than the other leaders. But what you also saw, maybe less typically, was he was a bit more on the defensive in that exchange. I mean, there were points made on both sides, but him and Mr. Mulcair particularly on why one supported C-51 and why the other did not. More typically in the rest of the debate, I think you saw Mr. Trudeau putting Mr. Mulcair on the defensive. This was a more even-handed exchange.
You know, I think throughout this debate, we saw all three of them on the defensive at different times. In that sense, it really truly was a debate, and the moderator, Rudyard Griffith, stayed out of it for the most part and just let them go at it back and forth. And it was really fascinating watching that. Here's another exchange. This was on C-24. That's the Canadian Citizenship Act that was put through. Watch this exchange now.
Canadians, all of us who are here, expect that we would have a minimum bar, that people would not, people who come here would not be guilty of trying to plan terrorist attacks against this country.
A Canadian is a Canadian, and you devalue the citizenship of every Canadian in this place and in this country when you break down and make it conditional for anyone. We have the rule of law in this country, and you can't take away citizenship if you don't like what someone does.
Individual
You
question.
can't do that.
The individual question, Mr. Trudeau, is convicted of
And
planning
should be
the
in
most
jail,
heinous
and
terrorist
that's where
war
we are.
ever against this country. A few blocks from here, he would have detonated bombs that would have been on a scale
politics
of 9/11.
fear,
This
once
country
again,
has
Mr.
every
Harper,
right to
we are
revoke
not
the
a country
citizenship of an
dominated by
individual like
fear.
that.
We are a country of laws and rights.
All right, so while C-24 was the topic of discussion, really what they were using in that exchange was this discussion over the citizenship that the Prime Minister pulled over the weekend of one of the Toronto 18 convicted. Chantal, on that one?
The Conservatives feel that this is one of their strong cards. I think tonight it was demonstrated to be a very dangerous card for them. I think Justin Trudeau in this exchange was fairly effective on an issue that most people have not spent, if they don't have dual citizenship, a lot of time to think about, and brought it back to core principles. Why I think it matters that he did well in that exchange is that there are scores of voters who come from other areas of the world who do have dual citizenship, who will be listening to that concept of two-tier citizenship and be sensitive to that argument.
You know, one of the areas that we haven't heard a lot discussed throughout this campaign has been the issue surrounding climate change and greenhouse gas emissions. In the final half hour or so of the debate tonight, there was a good exchange between all three leaders on this. Watch this.
We will be the first country in the world to effectively shut down coal-fired, traditional coal-fired electricity. The biggest single source of emissions on the planet are being eliminated in Canada. We're going to have the cleanest energy sector, and we're doing that without imposing taxes on Canadians'
Mr.
consumers.
Harper, you and your government fought tooth and nail against the Ontario government as it was demonstrating that it could reduce its emissions by the most significant degree of any jurisdiction in the country by making a simple policy decision that you were no part of, and even blocking and ridiculing from your gang in Ottawa, and then at the same time now taking credit for it.
No more excuses possible. No more fake stuff from the Liberals. No more pretending
$40 billion
to do things
in
from the
infrastructure isn't
Conservatives.
fake, Mr.
The
Mulcair.
NDP will get it done. I have that track record. We have that clear plan. These will be hard caps. There'll be real limits, and they will be enforced.
All right, Bruce, on that exchange.
Well, I think it's an important debate to have. It would be good to have more of it still. But on the whole, I thought Mr. Harper had his best debate so far in this election, although on this issue was probably the weakest point for him, the most exposed flank, if you like. I thought Mr. Trudeau did a pretty good job of taking the lumber to him on this issue. Mr. Mulcair, that clip was actually, it reminded me of the other feelings I had watching Mr. Mulcair tonight. This will be very much in the eye of the beholder, but to me, Mr. Mulcair just didn't seem as comfortable from a tone and body language standpoint. I felt several times as he was referring to Mr. Trudeau or looking at Mr. Trudeau, he was like Mr. Trudeau's uncle, but he was saying, "You're my least favorite nephew." There was an aggressiveness to it that felt a little bit awkward in the place.
Well, aggressiveness and, you know, condescending at times. There's some of the shots that were being taken. They all had those kind of body language things. Justin Trudeau was very aggressive and more than a few times during the debate. Mr. Harper had that kind of smirky, smiley thing going when he was looking at Justin Trudeau, not so much when he was looking at Tom Mulcair. And you wonder how much those things matter in a debate like this, at least for those who are watching. Andrew?
Not a huge amount. I do think they each have their sort of weak points that they, for some reason, can't seem to shake. Mr. Trudeau, it's talking over other people, shouting at them. He didn't need to do that. He can be aggressive without doing that. Mr. Mulcair, it emerges as that kind of snide kind of put-downs that he somehow let slip that I think probably he'd be better off without. Mr. Harper, as you mentioned, it's just a question of the occasional grimace that crosses his face. But by and large, I thought Mr. Harper was quite controlled and has been controlled throughout these debates. He has presented himself as a much more appealing figure, as we've said before, than we might be used to seeing from him, and I think it's helped him.
You know, I asked Rosie earlier in the program whether she thought anything had changed tonight, and it's always dangerous to make that assumption early in the going. But watching it, what was your sense, Chantal?
I thought Justin Trudeau had a good night, and I thought that most people will actually hear about this debate through clips. They were not watching on their computers. And I thought he got away with a number of good clips on substance that in French, in particular, it looked like there was a different Justin Trudeau on that stage from the one we saw on Thursday night, who looked like he was a bit of a bystander. So I thought he had a good night, and because what he says may come across as different or more punchy, he may get more out of it than Stephen Harper, who is saying things that we have heard him say before.
You know, Bruce, your company came out with a new poll today that shows some slight movement. Anything happen here tonight that would encourage that movement to continue or reverse it?
Well, I agree with Chantal that this is going to be mostly about the clips and what clips happen. I think for those voters who are dithering about whether change is a good idea or not, Mr. Harper gave as good an account of the no change argument as he's given so far in this campaign. But I think that of the two pro-change candidates, Mr. Trudeau came out a more fierce, more aggressive, perhaps a more persuasive counterpuncher.
There's only one more guaranteed debate. There may be another one, who knows, but there's one more, and that's another debate in Quebec. Chantal, what should we expect with that?
It's a different debate than the one we had last week. There will be more periods of one-on-one like the debate we saw tonight, so it may leave viewers a bit less frustrated. Gilles Duceppe will be there. And I think that they will, Gilles Duceppe in particular, will be going even more after Thomas Mulcair because he got a bit of a bump from the last debate. It's on a Friday night, so you have to look at the weather forecast to figure out the audience. If it's raining, the audience will be high.
Okay, we'll leave it at that. We should tell people that if you're wondering, Elizabeth May was obviously not in the debate tonight, but she was tweeting once again. You can check her tweets in terms of what she had to say at various points during the debate tonight. Andrew in Toronto, Chantal in Montreal, and Bruce in Ottawa, thank you all.